أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining this webinar. Inshallah, this is going to be interactive and informative session for all of us. In today's webinar, we are going to share some basic aspects of policies about data protection and child safeguarding. And inshallah, we will have question and answer session. So we had about 35 registrations. Hopefully most of the people would be joining us in next few minutes. While we are waiting for other people to join, just to remind you to use laptop if you can, and keep a notebook and pencil or something to record or take any notes. Keep your microphone unmute, raise your hands for any questions so that we can have this session in a smooth way. You can use chat function to ask any questions. It would be good if you can switch on your camera so we can see you guys, and our brothers who are instructors or guiding us on these topics, they can also see who is in this meeting. And please make sure if you're unmute, then there's no background noise. We are recording this session for quality and record purposes. If you have any questions, you can use chat or you can ask during a Q&A session. So without any further delay, I would request Brother Ali Jaffri, who is GDPR and data protection specialist, to start with the first topic of today's webinar. Over to you, Brother Ali.
Okay, are you able to see me still?
I can see your background, but not yourself.
Okay, just one moment, sorry. Okay, now you can see me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I've got a few computers sort of connected to each other. So, well, you can hear me okay?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, let's just start with the screen share. What about the screen share? Is the screen share all right?
Yeah.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Thank you to everyone who's joined and taking the time out to register in the first place, and then showing the willingness of learning about a very important topic. And also, supporting Majlis Ulama by attending this session as well. If you can all make your cameras turn on, that would be really good. So it feels like more of a realistic type of session. This is what I say to everyone when I do these online ones, but only 70% of the people listen. So it's really down to you. Can't be forced. But if you can have the camera on, then it will look a lot more real than what it is looking right now. Me talking to a screen or being on the TV or something. So yeah. So once again, thank you for joining. Just a quick reminder, like this session is about data protection. The next one will be done by my friend Jawad on child protection policies. So hopefully you can stay for the full about 2 hours to cover the whole thing. What we will do in this session is you will hear a little bit about me, and this is not like singing praise, but this is to give you some confidence that the person who's telling you all this has got a little understanding of the topic, and hopefully you can gain a few things out of it. And in future as well, if you do need any help and support, Alhamdulillah, Majlis Ulama has been there like always with a number of services. It's just down to all of you to make use of these services. So we'll talk a little bit about and when I tell you things about me, you can also visualize yourself in that position. And see what sort of credentials or skills or experience you need to be a good candidate of data protection roles and responsibilities. Then we'll talk about some UK laws and standards, so where does the data protection sit in between all the laws that are around? Fortunately or unfortunately, there's a lot of guidance and limitations and ways or prescribed for us to do things within the United Kingdom, and alongside things like traffic safety, that we stop on traffic lights and don't park at places we shouldn't be parking. We should be doing some stuff digitally and morally as well. So we'll just have a quick understanding of that. And then who needs to worry about data protection? Does everyone needs to worry about it, or only a certain people? We'll talk about that. Now that you have made a start of learning about data protection, where do you actually start within your own organizations or whatever role you have within within your sort of work life? I'd say I don't think this applies at home. So whether you're working or volunteering or helping someone, where do you start? What are the data processing activities? So once you start working with data, you will do something with it, and we'll talk about what can be done and what you have to take care of. DPIA is a very common term within data protection, and we'll touch on data protection impact assessments. And lastly, once we've understood like what the background is and what needs to be done, then the actual doing part is information governance. So what policies and procedures and standards and roles and responsibilities and everything that we need to put into place to achieve that compliance, we would have set the foundations on. And it's well and good to have all the policies and procedures in place, but some of them have to be enforced, and there's some tasks that actually need to be done, like physically, to ensure that the controls you have specified to protect data are actually in place. So some of the things you will say to your staff or to yourself or to your management, please do this, and if you don't, then something will go wrong. And some of the things you would make sure that no one's able to do it. For example, if you lock a cabinet, then no one will be able to open it. If you leave the door open and say, please don't go inside, then there is a chance someone can go inside. So we'll talk about some information security controls as well. At this point, I just wanted to quickly check that does this all sound good to anyone? Is it something you were expecting differently? Is there anything else you would like to know about data protection? We'll leave a couple of minutes to get some input, and I can hear some voices as well. You are welcome to unmute your mic and say things. And if the discussion is going for too long, then I'll stop because we have limited time. Is everyone in the right place? Is this what they want to know? Yeah, everyone's good.
Yeah, that sounds good. Inshallah.
Okay. Thanks very much, Adnan. I can see you and hear you, so you're the best person for me right now. Yeah, the more people I can see, they will get more brownie points. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. So Ali Jaffri, I try and support MUS like as much as possible in different ways, inshallah. I'll try and look at the chat as well, but if you don't hear back from me and you've written something in chat, then please unmute, because men are not that good at multitasking. So just a few credentials, and I'll talk about these credentials for yourself as well. If you are seriously considering data protection or you're responsible for it, then there might be a few things you want to know about. So CDPO stands for Certified Data Protection Officer, and not every organization needs to have a dedicated data protection officer, but if you are dealing with personal data, you will need to have at least someone identified as a responsible person for data protection. If you're dealing with large volumes of data or special categories of data or in a specific setting, then you can do an assessment and decide that you need a data protection officer, and that could be a trained person, or it could be an external organization that you have a contract with. So just on that point, there is no specific requirement or specific skill set required for a data protection officer. So the Information Commissioner's Office doesn't say that this is the certification you need to do, and only then you can become a DPO. There are various organizations offering data protection certifications, ranging from a 1-day to a 3-day course, with an exam in the end. I did one as well from a training company, and I've got that certificate now. So if you are considering offering your services, then you might want to pursue a certification in data protection. Otherwise, experience and good knowledge of data protection is good enough. ISO 27001 is the information security standard. So there are various ISO standards. We have got a specific slide for that. So I'll talk about it then. Because once you have your files and folders or your emails where data is, or even paper, you need to protect that physically and digitally. So it makes sense to understand how you specify what to protect, but then how to protect as well. That's the ISO 27001. And then there is a technical side of IT as well, IT data protection. So if you understand information technology, then you can help with the software and the hardware side of things too. So the ICSI stands for International Cybersecurity Institute. GDPR is is the most common term. I think everyone knows the General Data Protection Regulation. Things have changed from this year, January, when Brexit happened. So we're not actually part of the European GDPR version, where it all started in 2018. After all the various leaving processes, in June this year, we have adopted something called UK GDPR. So it's not just GDPR, it's UK GDPR, and UK has adopted a lot of things just on the basis that they were part of creating the standard. So they took a lot of things out of it. Then if you deal with medical data, now this might not apply to anyone over here, but if you deal with medical data in any form, then the NHS have got a standard called NHS Data Security and Protection Toolkit. And especially around medical records and patient data, you need to apply more governance and more security on those type of records. And lastly, this might be a new term for you, because it was for me like a couple of years ago. You can do a quick search on this in Google. It's called Caldecott Principles. And for again the medical side and public sector side of things, there's actually one person in the UK who is a data guardian, and she is actually called the Caldecott Guardian. And there are 8 or 9 principles, I can't remember, and they have to ensure that the UK government organizations are following Caldecott principles. And there's an interesting history behind this too. So if you search for Caldecott, you'll find out more about it. So with this mix, I when I offer a training session or a webinar, then I can give you a full mix of information, and then when I offer services as well, to either commercially or voluntary, then I can cover like a broad spectrum of it. Just on that note, so we are, this one is like a webinar, basically. So webinar is meant to give you intense information on the topic. It's not actually like a training session as such, because not possible to fit everything in about 50 minutes. But I'll be very happy for you to contact me via Majlis Ulama, and then I can provide any advice and guidance. When I finish a slide, that's the best point. That's the best point if you want to ask any questions. So before me moving and starting another topic, if anyone wants to just raise their hand on chat on the list of participants, then I'll ask them to unmute their mic. And we are a small group, so if you really want to unmute and start talking, I don't mind as well. So just very quickly on UK law and standards, there's various act, and health and safety is probably the most popular one that you see in charities and mosques and community centers. relating to fire and safeguarding, and something like child protection, falls into health and safety, and hazardous substances. Everything, it can be just health and safety. It's just such a sort of a broad term. So there is a Health and Safety and at Work Act, and that specifies a lot of principles and guidance. There's a Criminal Justice Act. Charities are under Charity Act 2011. The schools and educational settings are under the Education Act. And then the specific act for data protection is the Data Protection Act 2018. And that's the one that applies to us, and everything that we will be talking about today. I am not going to go into the act, because I've attended some trainings where we start going through the principles and the theoretical side of the act. I'm quite a practical person, so I'd like to tell you what you need to understand and do, rather than go into theoretical stuff more and more. ISO standards, some of you might be aware of ISO standards. There are lots of them, but ISO standards are actually frameworks which tell you a process of achieving compliance of certain sort. So if you want to achieve compliance on information security and data security, the standard is ISO 27001. So you follow a guide, and you make sure you get your organization to a particular level, and then you apply for ISO 27001 certification, and then you get certification, and then you can put your logo on that we are ISO 27001 certified. And that shows that this organization has taken all the steps to apply information security in the best way sort of possible, and that includes the Data Protection Act as well. The Health and Safety Act also has a standard called 47001. As I said, within webinars, some of the things will be pointers, so you can search for ISO 47001 and have an idea of what that act is. The most popular one is 9001. This is a quality standard, and it can apply to almost any industry. It's not anything particular for one specific area. So within understanding of the acts, that these acts are the ones that we come under, and the ISO standards will give you a good view and good knowledge of what's required of you, and to get to a point where you say, now we feel happy that we're compliant. All right, so the next section is around who needs to be compliant. And this question comes up quite a lot from people. For example, someone would come to me and say, we are a cricket team, and we are gathering people's data on a WhatsApp group. And do I need to apply data protection policies and all that? So and the answer is no. So if you are a small, I would say, let's look at this. So if you are a legal entity, so you are registered somewhere as a charity, as a company, as a school with the DFE, for example, or as a telecoms organization with the Ofsted, or as a council with the government. So if you are a legal entity, so are registered, you have a registration number, then Data Protection Act applies on you. So it doesn't apply to sort of personal settings or informal settings. And the next thing to worry about is Information Commissioner's Office. So ICO is also a very common term within data protection. Every one who deals with personal data or are a legal entity is required to register with the ICO. And there's a small fee of from £40 to about £500 a year, depending on what category of organization you are. But everyone needs to apply to register with the ICO, and it's a very short registration form, just saying that what your company name is and what you do and those sort of things. Now, people are a bit afraid of that. If I register with the ICO, what's going to happen? A few things. One, if it is, you're required to register with the ICO. So it's not like it's not optional that you want to or you may not want to. You have to register with the ICO if you deal with personal data. If something goes wrong, so for whatever reason, there is some sort of a case against you of breaching data protection and you're not registered with the ICO, then the problems are more than if you are registered with the ICO. And I can tell you very safely, I've dealt with the ICOs so many times, and they are very helpful. They always give you advice and guidance, and they actually assist you in helping with data protection. So they're not after the fine side of things. When you look at the news, you will see that they are after bigger organizations who have more responsibility and more chances of being breached. But for organizations of our size, they are very helpful. They even have a chat service, so you don't have to call them up. You can just ask your questions in chat, then they will give you very good answers. And remember to save that chat so that you have like a good advice from ICO. Just an example is having a data protection officer in an organization. It's the most confusing question that you can have within the data protection industry. Do I need a DPO or do I not need a DPO? And the ICO have got a self-assessment tool, so you can put say like this is what I do, this is what I don't do, and in the end it say you don't need a data protection officer. If you want to, you can have it, but you don't need a data protection officer. Sometimes you are quite sure that you need one. So go to the chat service, explain to them. And I deal with one of my clients is a care organization, and they have thousands of elderly people on their record. And I went to ICO and gave them all the details, and they said you don't need a data protection officer. So something like a care organization, patient data, special category data, and they said you don't need data protection officer. And that was my sort of justification that no, we don't need a DPO. They wanted one, so just to feel safe, but you're not required to have a DPO. But if you are someone like a council or a big school, thousands of records, CCTVs, and special information, then you might fall into that category. The third thing is about personal data. So if you deal with personal data, then you need to worry about data protection. What is personal data? And I thought this screenshot from one of my documents would be really helpful to you. If you can see the screen, and there's two types of personal data. There is a standard sort of, I would say, like personal data, like your name and address and email address and NHS number and date of birth, payroll number, driving license, those sort of things. And then there is a special category data. Most of the people would fall into the first part only. They just take what we call contact details, and in some cases they take NHS information or payroll information. But special category data is when you start to do more with that individual you're collecting data of. So you want to know, like, what background they are, what belief they have, and you need, for example, to do a DBS check on them, or you need to understand if they have ever been into a criminal case or something like that. And then, then that falls into special category. So, so if you are so if you are processing large volumes of special category data, then you may need a data protection officer as well. And lastly, the term data processing. So what is data processing? And this usually deals with collecting data. So you would have some method of collecting the data, then you're storing that data somewhere, you're using that data to make your decisions or the next steps, and you are then deleting that data, and you may be storing it for a long time. You may use that data to create more data from it. so there could be multiple reasons for you to like do that data protection. Sorry. Okay, so before I move into the next session, I just want you to just yourself for like the next 3-4 minutes while I take a quick break. Just think about your own organizations and tell me, where where you are involved in. How do you think like data protection could be applicable to you? And I really want to hear from like different people. So I'll give you 5 minutes. You can do that. Just think about it, maybe write it down, and then in 5 minutes I'll come back and ask you what's going on.